a start, that it means I'm recording the session. So welcome everybody. Thank you very much for attending, and I'm glad you've managed to register with Eventbrite and to log in to the right session. So welcome everybody. You can see there at the bottom in the middle, there is a QR code. And if you wanted to hold your QR code reader up to the screen, it would enable you to follow me on LinkedIn. No, on Instagram, sorry. I'm assuming you're already following me on LinkedIn. I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn, and I would encourage you, if you don't, to follow me on LinkedIn. Good evening, Rachel. So what are we going to do tonight? What are we going to do? The main thing I want to do tonight is to work a question with you live on the practice platform, showing you a little bit of exam technique. I want to talk a little bit in general terms. I want to talk about my revision course, and I want to give you time to ask me anything, you know, so there will be time at the end of the session for Q's and A's. Thank you very much for staying up in Singapore, 1 o'clock in the morning. That shows to me great dedication, and I appreciate that. So just a very quick reminder, you've got to enter the exam. And maybe this is patronizing, but you have got to make sure that you have paid the ACCA, their exam fees, to enter the exam. And the advice I would generally give is to do the international version, because it's slightly easier, because you don't have the UK additional or the Irish additional information. You would only want to do the UK variant or the Irish variant if you had a specific need for a practicing certificate. In other words, you were going to be a sole practitioner on your own, or you were going to be the engagement partner in a large audit firm. So the vast majority of students, I find, just want to pass the exam and get qualified, and therefore they choose to do the international variant because it's slightly easier. I support my students either route. But if you're not fussed about being a sole practitioner, do the international variant. It is slightly easier. In some countries, in the UK, for example, you have a choice as to whether you do the exam at an exam center or whether you do the exam at home and have remote invigilation. I cannot tell you which is the right one to do. It will depend on your circumstances and your attitude. Most students prefer the traditional role of traveling to an exam center because it means that the ACCA have responsibility for the Wi-Fi, have the responsibility for the IT. But it does mean you've got to travel, and it does mean that you might be sitting next to somebody who's noisy, smelly, I don't know. Whereas if you do it in your own home, you're in your environment, it's your temperature, you know, it's your circumstances, but you have responsibility for sorting out the IT. So yeah, don't forget to enter the exam. That's the key point. So let me introduce me. This is very, very quick. Like you, I was an ACCA student. And I studied, yeah, whilst I was working. And I did these exams and I found them tough. And this is obviously pre-internet days, but I did qualify. And when I qualified, I happened to be working for KPMG. And I was dealing with bankrupts with KPMG. And the guy I shared an office with was dealing with the bankruptcy of George Best, who was a footballer that you may have heard of. I never met him, but I certainly looked at his file. Steve Sampas, I think it's, anyway, whatever, that's another story. I left KPMG shortly after I qualified and fell into my vocation, and my vocation was teaching. And I worked for Emil Wolf, I worked for FTC, and then we became Kaplan, and I was part of the management team. I was running Kaplan at the ACCA operation, at a Borough High Street for a number of years, had a fantastic time. All good things come to an end, and I went to live and work in Singapore. And when I came back from Singapore 4 years ago, I wanted to do something slightly different, and I got involved with the online world. And ACCA, I've done a lot of work with ACCA on that area, and I now deliver online courses for students to help them pass SBR, and I do that through FME Learn Online. So yeah, if you want practical support, my support, then I can provide that for you. I've introduced myself, and I am curious if you could introduce yourself. And the way that I'm going to do that, and there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer, I'm simply curious as to what you've done today. Yeah, what you've done today. The exam's a month away. It's the 1st of May. And there's a right mixture of responses that I'm getting in, which is kind of what I would expect. And I can see that some people have replied, but I'm just giving 5 more seconds. 5, 4. There's no right answer, is there? There's no, it's anonymous as well, you know. And I can see actually that the winner, or the most popular answer, 45% of you have been studying, working hard. That's okay. Yeah, you're putting knowledge into your head. Yeah, you're still learning. That's fine. Those of you who've chilled out, again, that's fine. We need a balance to life, work-life balance. Maybe tomorrow's a bank holiday in many places, so maybe those people who've chilled out today are going to be working hard tomorrow. There are some of you out there, 20% of you out there, who are revising, who are doing mocks. Yeah, I love you. Thank you. Yeah, you're ahead of the game. Because as we move into May, May is the month of revision. As we move into May, we need more and more to transition from the learning phase into the applied phase, from the study phase into the mock exam and revision phase. When I listen to students, when I talk to students who didn't pass first time, very often they say to me, it was about time management, it was about lack of exam practice, that they spent too long learning, building up their muscles, and not enough time learning how to use them. So it's really important that we headline May as the month of revision, that we get into that process. And some of you on the 1st of the month are there, and I know more and more of you are going to be moving in that direction. Anyway, hello, welcome. Thank you very much for attending. I was in Thailand 5 years ago on holiday. I was living out in Southeast Asia. My wife was there, and we had an opportunity to visit beautiful Thailand. And no, actually, this was Vietnam. This was in Vietnam. This particular photograph was in Vietnam. And we went on a cookery course, and I learnt how to cook. So when you see the examiner's answer, what you're seeing is the finished product. And that doesn't help me understand how to cook the dish. I need somebody to physically show me how to put the ingredients together in order to make the dish. And that's what I'm going to be doing for you today. That's the idea of me showing you that picture. And what we're going to be doing in a minute is not what this slide says. This slide is showing the question trying to fit the answer. That's the wrong way around. You've got to make the answer fit the question. Let me say that again. You've got to make the answer fit the question. I don't know the question you're going to be asked in the exam, and you don't know it either. And the question will be unique, and you've got to make sure that you answer the question. You cannot go into the exam with a preconceived notion of what you're going to say. You've got tools, and you're going to have to use those tools in order to answer the question. Let me give you a moment to read this quote from the examiner's report. When you finish reading it, can you put a Y in the chat box? When you finish reading it and you want me to move on, can you press a Y in the chat box? And when I've got 20 Ys, I will move on. It's an important message. Yeah, it's an important message. We are not Google. Yeah, we're professionals. So we're going to have to show application. I think I've got enough Ys. Thank you very much. Katrina, thank you very much. Now, these two individuals are rugby players. And what we've got is they play for Saracens. This chap here on the right is the same age as my son. He's not my son, but he's the same age as my son. And my son used to play rugby against him. And this man is Mario Toji, who's a very famous and brilliant rugby player. Now, this picture of these two is taken at the StoneX Stadium, which is the home ground of Saracens. And the reason I'm talking to you about the home ground is because when Saracens play at home, they beat Exeter the other week, they expect to win. And they expect to win because it is their home ground. When you play away as a sports team, you're slightly on the back foot. Yeah? Now, I want you to make the practice platform your home ground. I want you to go on ACCA's practice platform so much in the month of May that you're familiar with how to cut and paste and use it. This is why I set my mock exams on the ACCA practice platform. Because if we get used to the practice platform, it's a bit clunky. You know, it's not perfect. The Word is not as good as Word, the Excel, the spreadsheet functionality is not as good as Excel. In a way, I don't care because it's the same for everybody. So what I want to do is, I repeat, I want you to be making the ACCA practice platform your home. Sometimes I do a poll at this stage and ask people how many times they've been on it. And I'm always slightly disappointed or slightly shocked as to how many people haven't been on the ACCA practice platform. The ACCA can look at the use of the practice platform and they can do big data, they can mine big data. You are more likely to pass this exam if you've done a mock exam on the ACCA practice platform. It's as simple as that. And the ACCA did a research project and there's an uplift of something like 12%. It's an uplift of 12%. So please, yeah, make sure you do the ACCA, make sure you play with the ACCA practice platform. It's why I make my students do the mock exams, my mock exams on the ACCA practice platform. And what I'm going to do now is to switch sharing, and I'm going to share Where are we? Going here, and we're going on test reach. So what we're looking at here is a question that you've probably not seen before. It's from my course, and it's from the end of tuition mock exam. And I'm just wanting, can we see the question of Palace? Can you just, I've done a new screen share. We can, okay, fine. Thank you very much. Yes, you can see it. Right, now, what I want to do here is to answer this question, and I'm going to do it slightly as a little bit of a party trick in that I'm going to do it live. So this is what the ACCA practice platform looks like. And I'm looking at the time. Well, I'll come back to the time issue in a minute because I'm just talking at the moment. What we have is the central part here, and you can, if you want to move that. I don't see any point in moving it. This central part tells you a little bit of the background. So we've got a company called Palace. Yeah, it's considering the accounting implications, and it's got exhibits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 exhibits, and you can see the exhibits there. And exhibit 1 is about the sale of equity. Exhibit 2 is about the purchase of equity, the purchase of equity, the purchase of equity, and about pensions. So although question 1 is labeled in inverted commas the group accounts question, it's not exclusively on groups. And you will not be asked to physically prepare group accounts either. Now you've got a choice of response options. You can either go into the word processing, i.e., Word, or you can do number crunching in terms of the spreadsheet. So you have a spreadsheet function there as well. Now, what I'm going to do very aggressively is to encourage you always to look at the requirement first, rather than open up the exhibits. And in looking at the requirement, I'm going to encourage you very aggressively to open up the requirement Control-C, and then go into the word processing, and in the word processing, then go Control-V. And I'm going to format the answer here, and you lose the format, you lose the formatting. So you have to go in, and this is exactly what I would do in the exam. Yeah, exactly what I would do in the exam. And I would separate it out here. It takes a moment or two, but what it does mean is that you've got the requirement in front of you whilst you're answering the question. And this is a 30-mark question. Now, the first part of the question is relating to how the sale of Diana, or the sale of shares in Diana, would be accounted for. So we've got that, shares in Diana. Now, if I look at the requirement, the exhibits here on the left, exhibit 1 deals with the sale of equity in Diana. So that is what I'm going to concentrate on. Yeah, I have the, I can only do one thing at a time. I can only do one thing at a time. So I'm going to concentrate very much on sorting out the answer. Yeah, and you can sort of move these things around a little bit. You sort out the answer to this particular question. Now, I am not interested in the whole question because I haven't got time. I'm not interested in the whole question because I want to demonstrate time management. It is now 18:21. The first part of the question is for 8 marks. How long have I got? How long have I got? If it's worth 8 marks, if what I'm doing is worth 8 marks, can you tell me how many minutes I should? Maximum 15 minutes. Yeah, more than 12. No, I take the 1.8 rule. Yeah, so this is a 15-minute exercise. So if it is 18:21 and I'm doing this to time, if this is 18:21 and I'm doing this to time, and I'm doing it plus 15 minutes, I need to hold myself accountable, and I need to finish at 18:36. Yeah, and then you can see, yeah, what I end up doing in that time. So this is 8 marks, and therefore, as I said, this is worth 15 minutes, and I'm looking to therefore conclude this at 18:36. Let's read the information. Draft an explanatory note. It's not a format to do with emails or reports. I can go straight into it. Which addresses the following issue: how the proposed sale of equity in Diana should be accounted for. Diana had purchased a controlling interest of 80%. If you buy 80% and it's a controlling interest, the NCI will be 20%. I've got the cost of the investment, I've got the net assets, I've got the NCI, they're a single cash generating unit, there's an impairment loss. Therefore, I know that I can calculate goodwill if I have to. I've got the ingredients there to calculate goodwill. Palace proposes to sell half of its holding. If you own 80% and you're selling 5%, it's a control-to-control transaction. But if you own 80% and you're selling half of your holding, you're going from 80 to 40, I'm assuming that's a loss of control. I'm assuming that's effectively going to be a disposal. So I'm thinking that we are accounting for a disposal. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And if this occurs, Palace will then have significant influence. And so it is a disposal because we're left with an associate. We've got the carrying value of the net assets. We've got the fair value of the residual holding. So we've got potential here for calculating the profit or loss on the disposal. The profit or loss on the disposal has already been calculated in that we've got a gain of 15, yeah, and that's already been calculated, but that's been calculated as the sale proceeds less half the cost of the investment. And I think that's wrong. So how am I going to answer the question? Well, the requirement is how the proposed sale should be accounted for. I think there's an element of a disposal to talk about. I think there's a correction in the way that it's been done. And I think there are some calculations that we're going to have to do. So I'm trying to break it down into various parts. Now, this is a disposal because we've lost control. So I'm going to say something along the lines, and it's bugging me now that I've got the thing on. Yeah, so I'm going to say here, Palace has sold shares in Diana and has lost control. It will no longer be a subsidiary. It will no longer be a subsidiary. Acquisition accounting will cease. Palace has sold shares 80% to 40%. Yeah. So what does it become? So we're losing, we're going to de-recognize. Yeah. There will be a profit or loss. There will be a profit or loss on disposal, recognized in the group profit and loss. And because we've got this phrase, significant influence, I know that we're going to be left with an associate. It's no longer a sub. Yeah. So the residual holding of 40% means that, yeah, and I've just controlled V, yeah, means that Palace Right, I think you can hear me now. Is that right? Can we hear me now? Excellent, excellent. I don't know what happened there, but I clearly went on mute and you couldn't hear me. But we're back on track. So let me carry on. Yeah, we overcome. So the residual holding of 40% means that PAS will have significant influence only. Yeah, it will be an associate. Yeah, it will be equity accounted. Yeah, so we're using key, absolutely key buzzwords. So I've talked about the disposal. Let me talk about the correction, because the gain here that has been calculated at 15 million clearly is wrong. Yeah, the gain to the group is not 15 million. This appears to be the gain to the parent. You know, the gain to the group is determined by the derecognition of the net assets and the goodwill. Yeah, by the derecognition of the net assets and the goodwill and the NCI. And that's really key. That's really key. So I've got the ability to do, I think, the calculations. Now, if you want to do it in the spreadsheet, you can, but there's actually no reason why we can't do this in a little table. So we can just, you know, bang together a little table and we can start writing out how we calculate the gain to the group. And this is where you've got to know your pro formas. So it's sale proceeds, yeah, less than net assets, because you're derecognizing the net assets, less the goodwill. They're both debits. Then you have to bring in the NCI or remove the NCI as a plus, and then we can bring in the plus of the residual. And then this will give us the gain to the group. That'll give us the gain to the group. Now, some of these numbers are straightforward, I think, and I will therefore drop them in. So what did I sell it for? I've got the information up here. We're selling it, half the holding, for 41 million. So we've got the 41 million there. So the sale proceeds are 41. So we can put that in. Less the net assets. Now, when we bought it, the net assets were 40, but that's not what I want. The carrying value of the net assets other than goodwill is currently 80. So if we are derecognizing it, that is 80. Less the goodwill, I don't know. I would have to calculate the goodwill. Now, if I'm going to calculate the goodwill, I bought the investment for 50. I then take away the fair value of the net assets of 40. I then, so no, I bought it for 50. I then add on the NCI, and the NCI is measured as a proportion of net assets. So if it's an 80% sub, the NCI would be 20% of 40. And then I would take away that. So what would that give me? 20% of 40 is 8. So that could be 58. That would give me goodwill of 18. And then I have got an impairment loss of 2. So I then have an impairment loss of 2. So that means when it came to derecognizing the goodwill, the goodwill that I'm derecognizing is 16. I then add on the NCI, which I don't know what it is. I've then got the residual holding, and the residual holding has been estimated at fair value is 41. So the residual, yeah, the starting figure for the investment is 41. Yeah, we can bring that in. Right, now what have I got? I've still got a minute or two. I think I can work out what the NCI is. There's been an impairment loss, but you wouldn't charge that impairment loss to the NCI because you've got a proportion of net assets. So what we're looking at there is what would be the NCI? The NCI is 20%, and the net assets at the year end is 80. So if you really want to be aggressive, you could take 20% of 80 and say that the NCI is 16. If you wanted to be a little bit more technically correct, you will still get the same answer in this context. You take the opening balance of the NCI, which was 20% of the net assets. You take the opening balance of 8, and then you would add on the NCI share of the growth in the net assets. And the growth in the net assets was, the net assets are now 80, and they were 40. So that would be 80 minus 40. And therefore 80 minus 40 is 40, 20% of 40 is 8, and that would be another way of doing it. This would therefore give me a calculation of the gain to the group. So let me just get the calculator up. I certainly never use the scratch pad. I've got 1 minute left or 2 minutes left. So what have I got here? 41, yeah, plus 16 plus 41 minus 96, and that gives me a gain to the group of 2. Now, strictly speaking, if I ignore the fluff that I had around I finished, I think I've got another minute. You'll allow me another minute because of the technical thing. So let me polish off the calculation here for the goodwill. So that's the parent's investment. And then we have added on the NCI. And then we have taken away the net assets. So we've got goodwill of 18. And then we have taken away the impairment loss. And the risk is that I then waste time by polishing up the presentation of the answer too much. Ladies and gentlemen, I've now finished. It's 18:37. I had a little bit of a fluff. Yeah, I had a little bit of a fluff there. And I've answered the question, how the proposed sale of equity should be accounted for, how it addresses the following issues in the Palace group accounts. I've done it to time. How many marks out of 8 do you think I deserve for that answer? Hamid's saying 6. Rachel's saying 7. Sharon saying 8. Catherine saying 7. Yeah, Monica, oh, you're harsh. Is saying 5. Karen says 7. Colin says 7. Imagine that. Imagine getting 7 out of 8. You only need 4 to pass. 5 will be good because it's group accounts and no one's giving me less than 5. Now, let me look at what I think here could be the answer. The general rule of thumb is 1 mark per valid point. Palace has sold shares, has lost control. It will no longer be a subsidiary. That's got to be worth a mark. There will be a profit or loss on disposal recognized in the group accounts. I think that's worth a mark. The residual, is that, oh, that's terrible spelling. But it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah. I do think this is worth 3 marks overall, the disposal. This is an answer that I have uniquely created for you. The gain to the group is not 15. That appears to be the gain to the. That's worth a mark. The gain to the group by the derecognition of the net assets, goodwill, and the. I really think I've got 5 out of 5 here for the words. You know, be warned. The majority of the marks here are for the words. And I think I have said, I mean, strictly speaking, there are 6 sentences there, or 6. You notice how I've left space. You notice how deliberately as a style I'm challenging. Maybe this is a bit weak. Maybe this is not worth a whole mark. Yeah, maybe if I kind of, you know, lose it in there, I could say, well, maybe that looks a little bit better, you know. But I think I've got 5 marks here for the words. I've broken it down, and in terms of my calculations, I've correctly calculated goodwill. Now that's a mark. I've got the correct ingredients, you know, the pro forma here. If I'd just written the pro forma out, that was worth another mark. And I've got some other numbers there which are correct. I believe, if you're calculating marks for the words, are the calculations necessary? If you're getting marks for the words, are the calculations necessary? I think the calculations are necessary. I think there are some marks here because the question is begging you to calculate the goodwill, and it's giving the ingredients to calculate the disposal. The requirement of the question, yeah, how is the proposed sale, how should it be accounted for? It should be accounted for by recognizing a profit in the group P&L of 2. It should be accounted for by the derecognition of the net asset. So I think you do want to get involved, Harper, in the calculations here. So I would mark this 8 out of 8. So we'll also get marks for performer despite that. Absolutely you would. You would, Petter. You would, Petter Gay. You would get a mark if you just wrote out the pro forma without the numbers in. And you slot in the numbers that you can. Yeah, there will be a separate mark for the calculation of the goodwill. Yeah, a separate mark for the pro forma, and then a mark for it kind of adding up. Now look, I could polish up this answer, which I'm not particularly inclined to, but I want to show you a party trick. I want to show you some technical knowledge. We sold 40% of the business. We never owned 20% of the business. And the bit of the business that we kept was a residual 40%. It was an 80% sub, we sold half. So the bit we sell was 40%. The bit we never owned was 20%. And the bit that we kept was 40%. And that always, those 3 questions will always add up to 100%. Because in a disposals question where you've lost control, there's 100%. The bit you've sold, the bit you never owned, and the residual. And I show that to you not to earn any more marks, but as a kind of validation and sort of sense of curiosity, yeah, for no more than that, yeah, just to validate your understanding of it. Does that make sense? Are we comfortable with that? Yeah. So there's a little example of me, you know, demonstrating what you can achieve. It actually makes me angry that the examiner's answers are so bloody good. It actually makes me angry that the examiner's answers are sometimes thought by students to be the sort of thing that they are expected to reproduce in the exam in order to pass. That is not the case. That is why I write my own answers, even to examiners' questions, so that you can see what is achievable, what is structured. You've got to get 1 mark at a time. You do not need to quote the name of the accounting standard. You know, this is IFRS 10, this is IFRS 3. I don't care, because a client doesn't care. They want you to be technically competent and to explain it. It is scary, Mia Francis. It is scary, but I don't want you to be scared. I want you to know that passing this exam is achievable. And that's why I've spent tonight showing you, yeah, what I want to do here. You know, and I want to get back to, you know, where we were in terms of talking through the process. But that little part of what I've just done is to talk to you, you know, about the practice platform. Now, the reason for the next slide, do you get marks for quoting the standards? Not really. You saw the examiner's report thing I got you to read earlier. We're not being graded as our ability to rote learn. We're not being graded as our ability to apply Google. It's not the nature of this exam. The thing that gets me every time is standards. The thing that gets me every time are these clocks, is the limited amount of time. You saw how I set the challenge. It is worth 8 marks, therefore I've got 15 minutes. If I had spent 20 minutes on that question, I would be doing myself a disservice on the rest of the exam. We need it to be realistic. I need to give you the confidence and the tools to enable you to know that you can pass this exam. But in order to pass this exam, you need to be good at time management. You need to have knowledge. Yes, most people have that knowledge, can gain that knowledge, can do the soaking in. The real added value, or the trick for the month of May, is how to squeeze it out, how to apply it, how to be confident, how to be aggressive. And that comes, I think, with exam practice. You don't need to be fancy to pass this exam. Yes, there can be something on cash flow hedges. Yes, there can be weird and wonderful stuff. But if you've got 8 marks to earn, to pass, you need 4 or 5. You don't actually need to know that the gain to the parent, that the 15 was calculated as gain to the parent. That was a kind of showy off point. Maybe I should have got that bit wrong. Maybe I should have got the goodwill wrong. Maybe I should have done a worse answer and got 6 out of 8 or 5 out of 8. Maybe that's for another day. But I wanted to show you the right answer, but the right answer that was achievable in the time allowed. Yes, I am making a recording of this session, and I will email you all a link to a copy of this session. So V Robinson, you will get that. Yeah, so what else do I want to reinforce? If you think you're going to fail, you probably will. If you think you're going to pass, you probably will. There's a mind game going on here. I genuinely believe that students are capable of passing this exam, but not everybody does. Now, some of them don't put in the work, but you've registered, you've come along tonight. You're keen. You're the good guys and girls, ladies. So that answer was worth 8 marks. Yes, Peter Gay, it really was. even though there were spelling mistakes, even though, yeah, it wasn't as long as an examiner's answer. You watch me create that in the time allowed. I can't do much better than that. For the month of May, is it better to revise more past questions and become familiar with it? Yeah, doing past questions is an excellent idea, but don't learn the answers. Get the answers marked. Get feedback. Don't learn the examiner's answer, because the same question ain't coming up again. Yeah? Don't overthink your answers. You've entered the exam. You've paid money. You've given time. You've got to maximize your chances of passing, because you've made an investment already and you are capable of passing, but only if you do the work. And I can help you more. And I can help you more by being your guide over the next month, by getting you to do revision, by getting you to do mock exams. I can do this for you. And this is now the advert. This is now me selling. This is now me pointing out that this is my job. Yeah? That doing mock exams on the ACCA practice platform is essential. Yeah, you can watch me debrief question after question after question after question. You can gain access to my revision notes, my revision videos. Yeah, you can gain access to my mock exams and my revision course. And if you're interested in doing that, then, you know, let me show you just a little bit. Let me do a little brief tease. Here's what my revision course looks like. Yeah, here's what my revision course looks like. And what I encourage my students to do, yeah, and I explain, you know, that May is the month of revision. So we've got an initial phase where we concentrate on groups. We've then got a phase where we concentrate on groups and ethics, and we do a mock exam on those areas. We think about cash flow, and then we think about current issues, and we think about, yeah, so on and so forth. So if we look at the group accounts, I've got some revision videos where I go over stuff. Yeah, quizzes, online quizzes for you to do some test knowledge. Yeah, revision notes on group accounts. So you've got what you need there, all the pro formas and information on group accounts. You know, I won't open it all up, but, you know, and then you've got question practice. So there's opportunities for you to do, yeah, questions that I've written, past exam questions, which I then debrief and explain in my own way. And then we move on to ethics. Yeah. You know, there's revision notes there, there's articles, so on and so forth. And built into this is 2 mock exams that I will take in for marking, but there's further mock exams here, there's notes. Anyway, I'm operating here a little bit of a sales pitch, which I'm not always comfortable with, but I do want you to know that help is out there. And if you are interested in talking to me, if you are interested in potentially signing up for a revision course or for a mock exam, then I have just put in to the chat box a link to my diary. If you click on that link, you can make a one-to-one appointment with me, and I will have a conversation with you this week about your revision strategy and how I can help you revise for this examination. Can you see that link? Yeah, you see that link in the chat box. Yeah, so that link is there. And if you click on that link, you will have access to my diary effectively, and you find out a mutually convenient time. Now, it's a clever system. So if you're in a different time zone, it will know that you're in a different time zone, and it will, you know, show you the times accordingly. Right, let me just go back and let me finish off. Podcasts. Thank you very much. I'm pleased that you found my podcasts. That is something that I do enjoy doing, the podcasts. And the podcasts are very easily found on the podcasts are very easy found. They're just 10 minutes long. They're on Google Podcasts. They're on Spotify. They're free. Yeah, it's another little thing that I try and do to put back a little bit. Usain Bolt. Do I think the war in Ukraine scenario will pop up in the exam? No, it's too fresh. It's too current. We have had sort of references to disasters, you know, sort of basically on COVID and environmental change, that sort of thing coming up in the exam, and how we then respond to that. You can find the podcasts on Spotify. So if you Google my name, which is Clendon, and Spotify, it's free and you will find it. Now, the reason I've got here a picture of Usain Bolt is he's smiling. He is relaxed. On the day of the race, he knows he's put in the work. Those other three guys, they're stressed. You can see it, they're concentrating, they're a bit tense. He is relaxed. He is at home. He has done the work. And that's the idea, the goal, for you to have that Usain Bolt type of confidence, so that you know on the actual day of the exam that you've done the mock exams, you've had the feedback, you've got the progress, so that you can just do your best on the day. Is the NFT, will that be one of the current issues we should focus on? Obsessed with that area. COVID, sustainability are current issues. Yes. Cryptocurrencies are current issues. Yes. And thank you very much for posting about the podcast. A link there to the podcast. Excellent. That's very kind of you as well to do that. So try and emulate Usain Bolt. On the day, he is relaxed, not because he was running races the night before the exam, because he was putting in the work, So there's a little plug about my podcast, which has come up already. Very easy to find. Please subscribe to it. Yeah, please subscribe to it. And I'm getting to the end of my script, or I'm getting to the end of my hour, and I said I would allow you time for questions. And does SBR have any technical articles that are worth reading? Yes, there are plenty of them on the ACCA website. Please go on that. You will find technical articles on the ACCA website. So they are easy to find. So yes, I saw in the last exam, most of you have written answers. Yes, that's always the case. Questions are always going to have a predominance, predominance of written answers. How much is my revision course? What's the cost of failing an exam? What's the cost of 3 months of your life? What's the cost of re-entering it? My revision course is 547. That is in sterling, GBR, Kelly. That is the cost of my revision course. So if that is of interest, you also do a mock exam as well on its own. I'm just looking at the other questions that have come in to make sure I answer them. So Kelly, I've answered Kelly's question there. Sami, what tips would you advise to get the most out of marks you're running out of time? Plan. Well, first of all, try not to run out of time, but you know, you're human. Skeleton your answer, plan your answer. You saw I begun to do the plan, that I realized I was trying to break it down into the fact that it was a disposal, the fact that they'd done the incorrect accounting treatment, and the fact they'd done the calculations. So plan your answer out, skeleton it answer out. But really, to pass this exam, you need to be marked out of 95, 100. If you do well in question 1, well in question 2, well in question 3, but you spend an hour on question 1, an hour on question 2, an hour on question 3, you will fail. If you get 15, 15, 15, and 0, you're marked out of 75, fail. You've only got 45. Yeah? So you've got to score some marks. You can get 15, 15, 10, and 10, and you can pass. That's a pass. 15, 15, 10, and 10. Or 15, 15, 12, and 8. That's a pass, but you've got to answer all parts of the question. Is it possible to pass the exam on the basis of knowledge on current issues? No, it's that's just one small part of the syllabus. So you need breadth. Breadth is more important than depth because everything is compulsory in the exam. Is there a sequence on answering the questions? Okay, that's a good one. Do your best question first, but don't overrun. If you like ethics, do ethics first. If you like standards, do standards first. If you like groups, do groups first. Develop your own strategy. Most people do question 1 first, but you shouldn't feel a responsibility of doing question 1 just because it's question 1. But you mustn't spend 15, 20 minutes at the beginning of the exam reading it, faffing around. I don't like faffing around. You've got to answer every part of every question. So you may as well just go straight to the question you want to answer and just give it your best shot. Don't read question 1, then question 2, then question 3, then question 4. Think about it. Which question? Life's too short. The clock is ticking. There are no changes in the exam. There are no changes in the exam. So there are changes in the optional papers from September with professional marks coming in, and SBL there being a pre-seen case study. But for SBR, there are no fundamental major changes to the exam. Mia Francis, if you are doing the UK variant, I'll share with you my UK notes. So just WhatsApp me, please. Me Francis, you can WhatsApp me and I'll share those with you if you want. So WhatsApp me and make that as a very specific request. So you can see there my WhatsApp. Kelly, WhatsApp me, yes, and do that. And if you want a conversation, book a conversation with me using that link. Sir, could you please scroll up to my question? I was asking you about the format of the answers. Short sentences, short sentences, please. Kiss, kiss. Keep it simple, right? Kiss. I haven't got time as a marker to read long sentences. I don't care about the spelling. I don't care about long, fancy words. It's about clear communication. We've lost control. It's no longer a sub. We now only have significant influence. That means it's an associate. Therefore, we equity account. Yeah? The profit in the question is wrong. That is the gain to the group. That is the gain to the parent. The gain to the group is about de-recognizing the net assets, the goodwill, the NCI. Say it as it is. Apply your knowledge. Use the name of the question. Don't memory dump. If you find yourself memory dumping, you are not applying. How do you know which one to do first if you haven't read them all? Don't read them all. Because if I read the first one, then I read the second one, then I read the third one, then I read the fourth one, then I decide which one I'm going to do first, or I've forgotten what I've read. You've got to do them all. Just start at the first one. And you don't even, you saw, I didn't need to open up the other exhibits because the requirement of the first part related to the first question. The requirement of the second part at the second exhibit. You've got to learn to be aggressive because of the time management. Otherwise, you are sunk. I hope that helps answer your question. I'm sorry, I'm getting excited. Other than group accounts and ethics, are there syllabus elements we should expect? Yes, I have my hottest tip. Yeah, this is a tip. This is a topic that is always coming up in the exam. Are you ready for this? 1, 2, 3. There's always a surprise in the exam. Sorry, I'm being slightly facetious. Groups always comes up. Ethics always comes up. There's always something from an investor angle or a stakeholder angle. So there's always something where you are having to explain an accounting treatment or an accounting consequence from the perspective of a shareholder or from a loan creditor or from an employee or something like that. Current issues in some shape or form always comes up, but it comes up in many different shapes and many different forms. And if it does come up, it's part of the question. Part of the question, not a whole question. Part of a question. So it may, you know, you may be asked about the ethics of investing in cryptocurrencies or something like that. Thank you very much, Mary. Yeah, I am beginning to wrap up. I am just wondering if there are any last questions. You're giving 2 papers, OMG, massive respect. You've got to be careful you don't fall between 2 stools, my friend. Yeah, it's a bold person who does 2 exams at one go. Yeah, so good luck with that. It's not something I would normally recommend unless you're a full-time student or you've got some particular reason for doing so. You should be practicing. Yeah, past questions, questions from the kit, listening to my podcast, mixing it up. If you want to do my mock exam, get in touch, because that way you get feedback. That way you get updates on your current issues. Yeah, good luck. All right, full-time student, fair enough. Yeah, nothing else to worry about. Excellent. A lot of us are not in that fortunate situation. Thank you very much. Right, I'm going to be quiet for 5 seconds. If you have a question, you have 5 seconds to quickly type it. Yeah, normally the case in the question is wrong, and normally we therefore correct it. You can bring your own calculator to the exam, yes, providing it's not programmable, but you have a spreadsheet functionality and you have the calculator as you saw me use. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Shabib. Thank you, Isha. Thank you, Hamad. Thank you very much for attending. Yeah. Good luck, everybody. Yeah, but boy, oi. Now's not the time for luck. Yeah, you make your own luck by working hard. You make your own luck by doing revision. All right. And if you want to talk to me, yeah, you can say, yeah, you have access to my calendar there. All right. Excellent. Thank you very much for attending. Yeah, thank you very much for attending.